Yes, I did. Good afternoon and welcome to the Rotary Club of Fort Worth. To let you know, I am not Kirk Driver. Many get us confused, but I'm the taller one. I'm your president-elect, Rebecca Montgomery, filling in for our president, Kirk Driver. Now let's get started. Please everyone rise. Today our invocation will be led by Karen Telshaw Johnson, owner and principal of Telshaw Johnson Law.
Let us go to the Almighty in prayer. It is good to recognize how different we are, our talents, our dreams, our backgrounds, our occupations. And it is good to know that when you created each of us, you broke the mold because no one is exactly like anyone else. Even our thumbprint and our voice track tell us how unique we are. Yet we thank you that we can take these differences and mobilize them for the good of Rotary and our community. In our differences, we can think the same thoughts and move toward a common goal. Bless us as we meet together in this place and in this time. Thank you for our individuality and also for our common bond of Rotary. In your name we pray, amen.
Thank you, Karen. And now this will be followed by Harriet Harrell, principal of the Harrell Group, on the piano for the national anthem. A+ so far, everybody. You may be seated. We have Crystal Galvan to welcome our visitors. Crystal is the owner and president of Hernandez Grants and Consulting.
Good afternoon. I'd like to introduce you to my special guest, Nikki Galvan. He's our future Rotarian. Yes. And I would say future community leader, but Nikki attends all events with his dad and I, so he is a leader in our community now. I'd like to say welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here. And for those of you on Zoom, thank you for joining us. And what a blessing it is to come together collectively as a Rotary group and serve together. Thank you.
Do we have a guest list? Just checking. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Now let's recite our four-way test. Number 1. Number 2, fair to all concerned. Number 3, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Number 4, will be beneficial to all concerned. Now everyone, help me welcome Vice President Kathy Sheffield to the stage for our newscast.
Thank you. Some of you seemed very sincere at first, and now it's questionable. So I need to disclose before I begin that due to the SAG and AFTRA and the Gilders Ride strike, I've had to prepare my own newscast. I don't know. Thank you, Tran. In national news, the Pentagon released that for the past 10 years, millions of U.S. military emails have been getting sent to Mali. Mali is a Western African country that's allied with Russia. And this is due to simple typos. Instead of appending the military.mil domain to their recipient email address, people have been typing .ml, which is the country's identifier by Mali. None of the emails were marked as classified. However, some were reported to contain highly sensitive data, including information about U.S. personnel, military personnel, official itineraries, passwords, maps and images of bases, things like that. Well, while the Pentagon has issued a statement that it has taken steps to stop outgoing emails being sent to Mali, This Take Action newscaster has reached out to Molly directly for their comment, and this was my response. Well, I guess, so can you read this? I cannot from here. Dear Sir or Madam, I can't read this from here, but it's a, oh, you guys, help me. It's a Molly Prince, it's like a Nigerian scam. It's the Molly Prince scam. This is a Nigerian prince who wants me to mail him $630 million through my account. Okay, guys, not going off to the good start. Donald Trump announced this week that he received a letter notifying him that he is once again a target in a U.S. Justice Department investigation into attempts to undo the results of the 2020 presidential election. The former president said on Wednesday that as he joked about his legal challenges, I did not know what a subpoena was, but now I'm becoming an expert. America is trapped in a legal Groundhog Day. We all know that insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. If that's true, Americans are going to go mad as we endure the making of Groundhog Day 2, the Trump era. So if that news story didn't raise your temperature, this one might. So it is so hot outside. While Phoenix has seen 21 days with temperatures at 110 or above, the humidity in the Gulf Coast is making it feel as if it's as hot as 120 degrees, and Miami has seen the 40th straight day with a heat index of 100 degrees or more. But most importantly, the surface levels of 40% of global oceans are considered to be in marine heat wave, with temperatures nearing 100 degrees. What do rising temperatures mean to consumers? Aside from rising electricity bills, higher costs for produce and meat at the grocery stores, and well, for some of us, that extra bit of deodorant that we might need, it means that restaurants that serve sushi, like Sushi Axiom and Blue Sushi, are going to begin serving fried fish and chips. Salad bars will be serving soul food, southern collard greens, fried okra, fried green tomatoes. And more importantly, Dairy Queen is changing the blizzard to a tsunami. And finally, in local news, you may or may not recall that last week after the national anthem, President Captain Kirk made a comment. He said, quote, I don't know about you, but the national anthem is one of my favorite songs. Well, I would like to think that it's one of all of our favorite songs, but his statement got me thinking, I wonder what some of President Captain Kirk's other favorite songs are. Well, after some digging, I found his playlist. So we know that the national anthem is one of his favorite songs. I found that God Bless America, God Bless the USA. Who doesn't love Lee Greenwood? God Bless the USA. Yankee Doodle, because we all know he's a dandy and he's handy with the ladies. Born in the USA, I mean, that's a good one for him. Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue. I don't know if you remember that song, but they kick a boot somewhere, because that's what America does. And this one was somewhat surprising. It's the Woody Guthrie song, This Land Is Yours Land, because while he looks like a just stoic police captain, he really is a hippie deep down inside of his big Texas-sized heart. And the last song that may surprise you really captures the essence of President Captain Kirk Driver's identity. Hail to the chief. So, thank you for that. The weather this weekend, it's going to be a welcomed cold front for the next 2 days, so enjoy those lower temperatures this weekend before the 100 pluses come back on Monday.
Thank you, Kathy. That was fantastic, amazing. Look out for the weather this weekend. We have a few announcements. Let's start by welcoming Wanda Bonder, owner of Relevant Wellness and our Rotary Community Outreach Committee Chair.
Hi, everybody. I am a really lucky girl. As many of you know, I have the privilege and honor of parenting two of the coolest kids I've ever met in my life. Somehow, as a single mama, I have been lucky that I don't have to worry about being able to meet their basic needs. This time of year, however, is actually quite stressful for a lot of our families in Tarrant County. There have been a lot of programs in our club that have made us aware of the poverty level of so many of our students. So last year, Abby Dudek brought to us the Tarrant County Back to School Roundup, and they have reached out and said they really enjoyed our participation. So we have it again this year. Here are the details. Friday, August 4th, there's 3 different ways that you can help a family in need. They're gonna serve over 10,000 kids. And this year, it's kind of cool, they're gonna have different services like social services and haircuts and some of those things that a lot of us take for granted. So if you feel called to help this time of year, some very worthy and needy families, reach out to me and I'll get you in touch with how to do that. Thanks.
Thank you, Wanda. Next, we have Tim Halden, Enterprise Account Executive with Charter Communications, and he serves on a Rotary Veterans and Military Support Committee.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the USS Fort Worth Support Committee, we'd like to invite you all to attend our Care Package Happy Hour next Tuesday from 5 to 7 at Blue Mesa Grill. We'll be collecting single servings of granola bars, dried fruit, nuts, candy, etc. Single servings work the best because of the storage purposes on the ship. If you'd like to donate coffee, please make sure it's ground coffee and no Keurig. Additionally, would you please register at ussfortworth.org if you plan to attend. And then on a different note, on September 29th, several of us are going to San Diego for the purpose of visiting the USS Fort Worth. Everyone is welcome to attend. You will be responsible for your own travel and travel accommodations, if you will. So on the 29th, we will have a happy hour for the crew. On the 30th, we'll be touring the ship in the morning, and that afternoon, we will be throwing a picnic for the crew, their family, and alumni of the ship. If you want some more information on that, please see myself, Karen Vermeer Fox, or J.R. Labby. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. And now I would like to welcome back Vice President Kathy Sheffield for grant awards.
So grant awards is so much easier than the newscast. And if you don't believe me, try the newscast. So thank you, President-elect Rebecca. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to make the 3rd grant presentation on behalf, or excuse me, I'm excited to make 3 grant presentations on behalf of our Rotary Club this afternoon. The first grant is for $5,000 and goes to Literacy United for their Reading for All program that serves adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities by providing reading tutors for those individuals. And accepting for this organization is Carrie Johnson. Of course, paparazzi is always, we stop for them. Our second presentation is for $5,000, and it also goes to A Wish with Wings. This grant will help provide medical wishes for area children diagnosed with life-threatening medical conditions, and accepting the for the organization is Leslie Irwin. Yeah. And our third presentation is for $3,500 to Cuisine for Healing. This will provide 500 meals for those suffering from life-threatening illnesses, and accepting for the organization is Madeline Tinsley. Can I have another round of applause for the great work that these organizations do in our community?
Thank you all for being here, and thank you, Kathy. Our grant awards are a special part of us giving back to those who are making such an impact in our community. You can all visit our club at any time. We welcome you. Now for another great moment. We get to announce our newest Paul Harris Fellow, Mr. Blake Mormon. Blake has been a member of our club since January 2012. Come join me up here. Since January of 2012, he has served on our board and as an officer, serving as club secretary in 2020, 2021.
Thank you.
You want to look that over here? Thank you, Blake, for everything and your continued service to our club. Now, the reason you're all here, to introduce our chairman of the day, Mr. Robert Stearns.
Wow. That's the reception I get. Okay. Thank you all. Usually as a chairman of the day, you get up here and you give these very long, drawn-out readings of bios to talk about how great the speakers are. The interesting thing about today is I'm on the panel, and so that's kind of odd to give all the bios and then go, yeah, and me, so I'm on the panel. So instead of doing the bios and just doing all that reading, I'm just going to introduce our panel, have them come up, and then we will get going on the presentation. And you'll notice that the facial hair game is strong on our panel today, so just to be aware of that. So first I'd like to call up Bill Chin, who is the CEO of the Dallas Entrepreneurship Center Network. Cameron Cushman, Director of Innovation Ecosystems at UNT Health Science Center. And me. And then I'll invite our moderator, Trey Bowles, who is the Managing Director of the TechStars Health and Physical Health Fort Worth Accelerator. So Trey, we'll take it to you.
All right, hello everybody. How we doing? So we are here today to talk about my favorite subject, which is entrepreneurship and innovation, and we are really fortunate to get to have the panelists that we have here today. So similar to Robert, I don't typically like to read long bios because it ends up taking up the majority of our time, especially when we have panelists as accomplished as the gentleman up here. So I'm gonna have each of them sort of introduce themselves, take 45 seconds to a minute to introduce themselves and really tell you what they wanted you to know about them. Today we're here to talk about some really exciting new happenings in Fort Worth around entrepreneurship, and you are going to be one of the first to see and hear something about this new Entrepreneur Center that's launching in about a week. Robert, I'll let you start, even though they know you.
I get Robert Stearns, Economic Development Director, City of Fort Worth. So I oversee our corporate relocation, retention aspects, our community revitalization, and then obviously small business and entrepreneurship, which we will be talking about today.
Cameron.
Cameron Cushman, Fort Worth native. I've been building entrepreneurial communities since about 2006. I started in the federal government, which is kind of an oxymoron that the federal government will be interested in building entrepreneurial communities. Then also did that work in Kansas City and am now back in Fort Worth, been back about a decade. But the work I did in Kansas City always felt like I was building someone else's city. And so now I have the privilege of getting to build my own city, which is super fun.
Hi, my name is Bill Chin. I'm CEO of the DEC Network. We're a 501(c)(3) 10 years old just this year, and we're really excited about coming into Fort Worth.
Welcome. Thank you guys for being here. So Sean and I started talking about this several months ago, and some of you may have followed this in the news, but about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, the city of Fort Worth wrote a grant to support the launch of an entrepreneurial center. This entrepreneurial center is going to be over in the near south side on Bryan, where, if you know where Roots Coffee is, it's actually the building that Roots Coffee is in. And the idea behind it is there's so many amazing things going on in Fort Worth to support entrepreneurship and innovation right now, but to build a place, a physical center where entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs can come to get resources. They can come to meet and connect. We talk often about the 6 C's that an entrepreneur needs to be successful. The first one is curriculum or content. They need to know how to build a company. They need to know how to legally structure a company and things like that. Second, they need coaching. They need subject matter experts who can come alongside them, support them, help remove obstacles that stand in their way. Next, they need community. They need a place like this where they can get around other people who can listen to their ideas, give feedback, help connect them, create opportunities. And then after community is collisions, like intentional connections. You need to meet this person because they could really be helpful to you. Next, they need capital. Right? In order to build, we need loans, debt, we need equity, we need people to invest in what we're trying to do to help us, give us the opportunity to grow. And then finally, we need customers. And so that's what the focus of an entrepreneur center should be. And that is what we're going to be talking about today. So, and I promise I will not talk the whole time. That was my intro. But I'm going to start with you, Cameron. Can you just talk about, I mentioned this, but there's been so much going on in Fort Worth, at least since I've been coming here for the last decade or so, around entrepreneurship. What are some of the things that are happening right now or that have been happening that you think are an important part of what makes a great ecosystem for entrepreneurs?
Sure. So I think Fort Worth, had for a long time, there's a lot of great businesses here. There's a lot of great startups. Many of you are small business owners. Many of you are small business founders, entrepreneurs, innovators, whatever you want to call yourselves. But there had not been much of a focus on how we kind of build and grow that part of what I'll call the three-legged economic development stool, right? So if you think about it, you got recruiting, right? We want to try to bring other companies from another place to move here. You've got retention, right? How do we make sure that the companies that are here are continuing to grow, that they have what they need? They may have to move to a bigger space. They're not moving to Capel or that city that starts with a D that's next to us, or a city. Ooh, wow, that was amazing. I didn't even say it and the mic went out. Man, that was incredible. He who shall not be named, huh? I was trying to be careful. Anyway, and so starting at about, it's kind of impossible to say when it really started, but when I 2017, there was not much of a focus on this, and so I get to do this work from the perspective of a medical school at HSC, and it kind of makes no sense, except that we're a public institution. We do a lot of federal research. We try really hard to commercialize that research and get it to patients, right? Whatever that means. And we were able to kind of build from there to really achieve our mission statement, which is creating solutions for a healthier community. Well, who creates solutions better than entrepreneurs? Who creates solutions better than innovators? And so we've really taken that to heart and kind of built our work around that mission. You've had institutions like the BAC, the Business Assistance Center, for 20 plus years. You've had Tech Fort Worth that has had several really big exits to their name. You've had independent companies. Like, did you know that Mucinex was founded in Fort Worth? Anybody know that? It's just fascinating, right? Mucinex was born here. We have this long history of innovation through companies like Radio Shack and Pier 1. The ice cream drumstick was invented in Fort Worth. Anybody know that? It's pretty cool, right? And so the spirit had always been here, but there had not really been this kind of a collective effort around how do we help that next generation of entrepreneurs, the doers, the dreamers, the makers, the builders, the people who take out huge risks to go start something, to go start a company. If you think about it, starting a company is probably the hardest thing that most people ever do in their lives. And it's really a team sport, right? Entrepreneurship should be a team sport. We should all wrap our arms around these people that are taking huge risks in every asset of their lives to try to bring these new things to Fort Worth, try to bring these new inventions to market, to patients, to customers, whatever that ends up looking like. And so we've done a bunch of different things, from restarting Global Entrepreneurship Week a few years ago. The big signature event for us has been our State of Entrepreneurship event, where we bring in a big name speaker and we talk about what is the state of entrepreneurship in Fort Worth. That's going to happen again in November, so put that on your calendars. It'll be the third week in November. We have started a podcast to try to highlight local innovators way before they'll ever end up in the Star Telegram or on Channel 5. If you don't know who the entrepreneurs are that are operating in your local community, then you won't know how to help them. We also brought Techstars to town, which Trey can talk a little bit more about, because Fort Worth was the largest city in the country that did not have an early stage seed accelerator program. So we fixed that. We had 10 companies from literally around the world come to Fort Worth last fall, and now they know Fort Worth better than any other city, particularly if you're from another country. If you're going to open a U.S. office, you're going to open in Fort Worth because you've got connections here. They loved being here. It was really awesome. And then now we've got this kind of next iteration of adding to capacity, because I think one of the things is, I mentioned all these great organizations that have done great work for a long time, and there's this feeling that we're creating more competition for them. I don't see it that way at all. I see it as Fort Worth has grown tremendously, right? Fastest growing large city in the country. And we have to continue to create the next generation of touch points, connection points, opportunities for the next generation of startups, entrepreneurs, new companies to get started. They're not all gonna come through one place. We have to grow the entire, what we call the ecosystem, in order to help all of those people, all of those entrepreneurs, and all of those businesses hopefully maximize their chance for success. So it's been a really fun ride. I've been doing this work officially for about 5 years. It's been super fun to see what's happened since then, but we've got to continue to keep our eye on the future, which is why we're excited to talk about this today.
It's so great to recognize what's already being done. I think the mistake sometimes that we make is that when something new happens or somebody new comes to town and they say, well, I'm gonna make Fort Worth entrepreneurial. Well, what about all of you who have been entrepreneurs in Fort Worth for decades, right? What about the work that's being done by these great organizations that already exist? The work that's being done here has been so powerful and supportive and important for the future. But it's also good to know that we have opportunity to get better and to add more. And to your point, Cameron, the more we do, the more things that people start to launch to support entrepreneurs, it's the more active that Fort Worth can be. And so I think that's a really good point, but it's also fun for all of you to hear, if you didn't know, some of the amazing things that were going on here, some of the amazing things that companies that were started out of here. It's also important, and Cameron used the term ecosystem. In order to build a successful ecosystem for entrepreneurs, it takes a bunch of different people. It takes a bunch of different stakeholders. And so when we think about what sorts of stakeholders that include, it includes obviously entrepreneurs and investors, mentors, academic institutions, but it includes cities and Rotary clubs and chambers of commerce and everybody coming together to support that hub, which is the entrepreneur, and then all of our organizations are the spokes that plug into that. What we often see as shortcomings or mistakes that happen is that some of those stakeholders try to play a role in the ecosystem that's not best for them, or they don't step up and do it right. And so one of the things that I've thought Fort Worth has going for it, as opposed to other ecosystems to such a degree, is the involvement of the city and the way the city is playing a leadership role, not just in Fort Worth, but across the country. And so, Robert, I'd love to just kind of hear from you a little bit about, from your perspective in economic development, why an entrepreneur center? Why is now the right time? And what is the role the city's playing in that? And what do you guys see important? How do you look at success as it relates to this initiative?
Thanks. Well, I think Cameron brought up a really good topic, the three stools of economic development again. And I think he's right. I mean, entrepreneurship and small business, while it has been part of that stool, I don't know that it has been as focused as it needed to be over the years. And that's not just in Fort Worth. That was a realization that economic development practitioners across the country realized when we went into the pandemic. So, again, as Cameron noted, we've had the James E. Gwynn campus for over 20 years. The Business Assistance Center has been there. Tech Fort Worth had a lot of great companies. Accelerate Fort Worth has been there for about almost 10 years now. So we've had a lot of good companies that came out of that. And the city has historically kind of taken on the role of support. You know, our role is to put the partners in place, put the funding in place, put the programs in place, and let the entrepreneurs kind of take it from there and help them grow. And then the pandemic hit, right? And so we went from supporting to like actively, we've got to engage with these entrepreneurs just to ensure that we could keep our business space flowing and keep businesses open. And so, you know, we took a very aggressive stance with CARES Act dollars. We got $55 million out to our small businesses, which was the largest amount across the country. And then we came out of that and we said, well, what's next? You know, what do we do now that we've gotten through the worst of this? What do we need to put in place? Like every small business had to do during the pandemic, how do we pivot and move some things forward? And I've been following what's been going on with the deck for many years, knew about the operations that Bill was doing at the deck in Redbird. And said, well, I'm going to go out to Redbird and just visit with Bill and understand what he's doing out there. And Bill and I had a really good visit, and I said, well, I got to figure out how to bring that to Fort Worth. And I kind of tell this story because Bill and I had a really interesting meeting, and we joke about it regularly, but we had a Zoom call scheduled. We're sitting there talking about entrepreneurship and how to try to get this thing established in Fort Worth. The date of that Zoom call was January 6th. And so on one screen, I've got CNN going, and I'm watching what's going on at the White House. On the other screen, I've got Bill, and we're trying to talk about entrepreneurship. And at some point, Bill and I said, you know, I think there's some bigger things going on in the country right now than our entrepreneurship discussion. But it just, you know, that meeting just kind of continued to drill home the point that governments, and particularly local governments, have an opportunity to better their community. And from my standpoint, it really is an opportunity to better our minority-owned businesses. I have a specific focus on that. And so being able to bring the Entrepreneurship Center here was something that I was very keyed into. We had set aside some dollars in the Local Development Corporation several years ago to support entrepreneurship. We set up an Entrepreneurship Innovation Committee led by our former Councilman Leonard Firestone to really kick around ideas. And it was during that committee meeting that Leonard said, hey, we've got this money that's sitting here. We realize we've got a good program over here. Let's bring those two together. And that's really how the concept of the Entrepreneurship Center came together. So it's funded through the Local Development Corporation. We put money in to really stand this up. And our thinking really is, you know, Fort Worth, when we started the back in the Gwynn campus, that was 25 years ago. Fort Worth is about half the size that it is today. We didn't have the growth that we have in the far north Fort Worth. We didn't have the growth that we have going on in West Fort Worth and Southwest. And so when you think about a one-stop shop, and it's the fastest growing city in the country, a city that is 350 square miles, one facility is just not going to meet the needs of everybody. So you need to have more of these around the community. And so this is really our pilot program. This is our attempt to put our MVP out there and see how it goes. And if this is a viable opportunity for us, I could definitely see us looking at other opportunities across the community, because we need to have more of these. We can't just expect people to come to our campus south of downtown and get everything they need. There's opportunities in North Fort Worth. There's opportunities in Southeast Fort Worth, East Fort Worth. So if we can really generate some good success with this, I think this is a good model that could be going across the community and something that other communities want to emulate.
That's great. And I think, you know, as we talked before about the 6 C's, the things that entrepreneurs need to succeed, and you talk about, you know, the city playing the leadership role that they're playing in order to deliver those 6 C's, right? In order to provide access to curriculum and coaching and community, somebody's got to run the thing, right? Like you can't just create a building and let it sit there. It's got to be programmed. It's got to be focused. And so there's a group from across the region called the Deck Network, and they've been doing this, as Bill said, for 10 years. And so as we started to think about, well, what do you need to pull this together if we're going to go work with the city and try to make something like this happen, to add to the work that Cameron and so many in this city have already been doing, we got to find somebody who can run it. We got to find somebody who knows what they're doing. And so That's why we invited the DEC network to participate in this capacity, and they have partnered with the city in this grant to get this Entrepreneur Center going. So Bill, thank you, first of all, for responding to the call and saying yes, and for the great work you guys are already doing across the region. Can you tell everybody here a little bit about what the DEC network is, what you guys do, and kind of what the 501c3 that you were mentioning earlier, its mission and vision is?
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks, Trey. Around here. Is this working? No. There it is. There you go.
Not sure that one's going to work either.
So the DEC network, as I said, is around 10 years. We support entrepreneurs. We do that through curriculum. We do that through a lot of the concepts that Trey hit on. Significantly, we do that through events. And an ecosystem's been mentioned a few times on the stage here, and that's truly what we try and promote, right? It's never going to be one point that's going to satisfy all the issues that it takes to be a really great, innovative city. There's so much going on in Fort Worth. There's no need to add in new innovation. I mean, we've got so many exciting businesses coming up. What they need is that technical assistance, and they need capital to fuel those businesses. And I think the frustrating thing, I was lucky enough to be in the Silicon Valley area in the late 2000s and watch that incredible growth. And so I still have a lot of friends in finance, and they run VCs and PEs, venture capital, private equity, and they'll call me up every once in a while and say, look, we're coming to DFW. And I say, great, this is exciting. I'm going to put an itinerary together for you. You're going to meet all kinds of folks. Where do you think you're going to office yourself out of? And it's the same answer every time. It's Ross Avenue in Dallas. Now, I'm a Tarrant County guy. I've lived here for 22 years in Tarrant County. And I'm like, well, what about Fort Worth? I mean, let's talk about the incredible growth story in Fort Worth. And let's talk about how crowded it is on Ross Avenue in Dallas. And that you're going to be next to a bunch of different VCs, and that's great, but don't you really want to be closer to the deals? And the real answer is venture capitalists don't want entrepreneurs to have unfettered access to them. They like being around other VCs, and I get that. But then I talk to them 2 years after they've moved here, and I say, how's the deal flow? And they say, it's frustrating. I have to fly to Boston. I have to go. And I'm like, okay, when we first talked about you coming here, we talked about Fort Worth. And you told me it's 40 minutes away. Don't worry, I'll be there all the time. And then 2 years later, I say, well, have you been to Fort Worth? And they say, yeah, that's that city across 360, right? And they'd rather fly to Boston than drive 40 minutes west and see the amazing companies that are here. So, I mean, that's what we've got to do, is we've got to try and connect some of these dots. We've got all the tools to be amazing here. We do need to pull in a little bit more capital, and we've done some great work there. But the city of Fort Worth has been amazing partners. Everyone has been so welcoming. We're opening our center early August. In fact, I'll invite everyone, if I'm allowed to advertise a little bit here. August 1st at 400 Bryant Avenue at 4:30, we'll be doing a tour. Everyone's welcome to come, get a glass of wine, walk around the building. But it's meant to be just one of the nodes within a larger and exciting ecosystem. And the intent of that is really to pull in the capital that Fort Worth deserves, so we can take these amazing businesses and give them the growth that they really need and deserve.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. I think, too, as you're probably sitting there in the audience, a question I get a lot of times is, well, is this new center, is it for me? Is it, who are you serving? Like, is this for tech companies? Is this for only small businesses? You know, who's the customer? And the great thing about an Entrepreneur Center and the solutions that they offer is that it can serve anybody in an ecosystem. Yes, it can serve small businesses. Yes, it can serve high growth tech companies, because the way that these are built is about the individual entrepreneur. And so that's why the coaching piece is so important. Because if we have somebody who comes in and says, I'm building a biotech company, then we go find one of the thousands of amazing subject matter experts in Fort Worth that can help you build a biotech company. And if you're building a landscaping business, we can go find somebody that helps you do that, right? At a very early stage, a lot of the needs of an entrepreneur are the same. As I mentioned before, how do I legally structure a business? You know, how do I hire people? You know, all the different elements there, that's the same. It's when you start to grow and start to see success that you need help from beyond that. And so the DEC has a mentor network that they've developed across the region that we're going to develop in Fort Worth, that every single one of you get to be a part of, to give back, to give first, and support the entrepreneurs that are really the fundamental piece of what our economy is. Small businesses make up so much of our workforce. And startups, high growth startups, is where job creation exists. And it's kind of foreign, because I think we often think, well, it's got to be big corporations is where job growth happens, or small businesses and it does happen there, but not at the degree that it happens with startup companies. And so when you think about, is this center for me, the answer is the center is for everybody. And so I would encourage you, if you're an entrepreneur, if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you know an entrepreneur, please send them over so that we can help her or help him in any way or capacity, and to support them as they grow. Cameron, again, so you've done a lot of work across the country, as you mentioned before, around ecosystems and entrepreneurship. What are some of the things that you think are really important for us to think about as we launch this space in order to be successful?
Oh, no, I went red. I'm meaning to trade you back here. Okay, here we go. Some of the things that are important as we launch this center, I think a connected community is top of the list, right? I said it before, I'll say it again, I may even say it one more time, is if you don't know who the entrepreneurs are that are operating in your community, then you won't know how to help them. So get to know them. They would love to invite you to have coffee with them, figure out how you can help them. Everyone in this room has a ton of expertise. Because you're in this group, you have access to a fantastic network. All the startups are looking for something, right? They need capital, they need a co-founder, they need to file a patent, they need some kind of something in their business, right? And we have access that we can help them along the way. So I think a connected community is number one. Number two is government support. Oh my goodness, we have fantastic government support, and they've done a really fantastic job, both at the city level and at the county level. I'm gonna brag on for a second. Not only Robert and his team funding this initiative, but also the Techstars initiative. Down the one. And Tarrant County actually funded one of the country's first municipally funded SBIR Phase 0 programs. And if that just sounds like a bunch of gobbledygook, come talk to me afterwards, because Fort Worth wins 0.3% of these federal government awards for small businesses in the state of Texas. Tarrant County gets 3%. Austin gets half. And if that doesn't make you mad, I don't know what will. Come see me afterwards. So you got to have a government that's helping support this kind of stuff. You also have to have, I believe, a vibrant philanthropic sector. And not because they necessarily need to invest in these companies, though that is obviously welcomed and helpful, but because this work of ecosystem building takes money, it takes time, it takes people. And if we're not seeding into the great work that Bill is doing, Bill runs a nonprofit, we've got to have people that are gonna come in after the city of Fort Worth and fund this thing sustainably. The program I just mentioned, SBIR Phase 0, that's a $2 million grant over 2 years. We're about 6 months into it. It's looking like this program is going to have tremendous success, but we need somebody to come in and help fund it afterwards. And that doesn't even include all the stuff that a local philanthropy, a cashed out entrepreneur, a community foundation could come in and seed of other gaps that we have in our entrepreneurial ecosystem. And so I think ecosystems have to have that. And if you look at, I used to work at one in Kansas City, the Kauffman Foundation. It was a $3 billion foundation that's dedicated to education and entrepreneurship. Not all that goes to Kansas City, but a big chunk does. In Detroit, they had that thing called the New Economy Initiative. 10 different philanthropies put in over $150 million to build their entrepreneurial ecosystem. North Carolina has done the same thing. They run a $50 million foundation. It's called NC Idea. To help foster entrepreneurship in their communities. And we don't have anything like that in Fort Worth. I'll tell you what is happening is if you look at Dallas, anybody been to Pegasus Park? Lyda Hill is funding that, and it is fantastic. It is really, really cool and is really going to set the course of Dallas biotech and innovation for decades to come. And so that's one of the things that I think every community needs that I think we're really lacking here in Fort Worth is that philanthropic support for some of these kind of initiatives.
So I think the one consistent that I heard across all of those examples was prioritization. right? As a city, you have to make it a priority that you are going to be committed to entrepreneurship and innovation. There's lots of ways to do that. And he talked about money, and money is important, but the amount of money that you need to run something like this is much less than you need to run big projects. But the impact is incredible, and the lives that it can change, right? And the generational wealth that can be created, or the ability to just provide for your family, whatever that may be, that's what's happening. One of the things I like most about getting to work in Fort Worth is that if you had an idea and you went and told somebody about it, and they said, like, hey, can I take you to lunch? I want to tell you about what I'm doing. You'd say, look, I've got this idea. I think I want to start this company. Well, in Fort Worth, we would say, you should do that. You should do that. Not, oh my gosh, you have no idea what you're doing, or this will never work. We'll say, you should do that. And the second thing that we would say, which is the more important one, is, how can I help you? And then we do it. Like, there's not a better place to be an entrepreneur in the country, in the world, because the things it takes in order to be successful is the help, the support, the perseverance, right? The roller coaster that it is, for those of you that are entrepreneurs, the roller coaster that it is to build a company is not easy. And that's why we have to surround ourselves with people like that. So I encourage you that in the conversations you're having at what makes Fort Worth the best city of the future, don't forget the important focus on entrepreneurship. Now, having said that, how do we do that? There's lots of different ways. And so I'm gonna ask you, Robert, here, as we think about this, in a traditional setting, the way you determine if something is working or not is you track its success. You set metrics, you set goals, you set KPIs, and you go back and you measure your success against that. That's obviously something we talked a lot about with the city and thinking through that. How do you think about, because you have this in traditional economic development, what are the kinds of things you want to see happen through a center like this to make you be able to come back and say, that's a good return on investment?
Well, I think you talked about some of the immediate aspects, right? So it's I think it's dollars attracted, funding attracted for the new business, it's jobs created. But a lot of it with small business and entrepreneurs, it's longevity, So do we get them beyond 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? If they're still operating, is that a success? If they're still operating and they've scaled up and now they've gone from a incubator space to a brick and mortar location, that's a key criteria. So you're looking at different things, and hopefully you hold their hand and shepherd them through the process to the point where, okay, maybe it was a 1-2 person shop. Now it's 3 or 4 people, and you continue to track that growth. And so those are really all the things that we're trying to focus on. And then particularly with this center, I think there's some great opportunities given its location. And I talked about my focus on minority entrepreneurship and women-led entrepreneurship is, are we hitting those cohorts? Are those cohorts engaged in the programming? Are they seeing the same levels of success that we see from other groups across the city? And are we tracking that as well? And so those are really the kind of things that I'm focused on and that I like to see. And that's part of our discussions. We talked about the contract and everything that goes into it. What does that look like? And then I'm going to take a little bit of a spin off from that, because you mentioned something really good as far as how the city supports these types of things and the things that we're looking at in developing entrepreneurship. One thing that we heard, and we've kind of continued to hear, is that our small businesses have issues with our permitting process, right? So this has been this ongoing issue. Our permitting process is terrible. We just can't get through. And so we took a very collaborative approach, and that included a lot of folks around this dais, to sit through and think about, okay, what do we need to have in place to just help them get through the process? So it's great that we got them training. It's great that we got them funding. But if they can't get permitting to open their business, we still got a stopgap. So really great group that came together, revised our permitting processes to make that much more simplified. We had a new website out there to address that. So you got a specific one-stop shop where you can find all your information. So again, to your point about you should do that and how can I help? That's just another example of how the ecosystem can come together, both city and private partners and entities, and saying, how can we help make these things happen? And so, again, success is not necessarily going to be multi-million dollars of new investment or hundreds of jobs, but it's these small incremental changes that we make day after day, month after month, year after year, that grows the ecosystem. That's really what's going to be the measure of our success overall.
That's great. Thanks for that. We just have a couple more minutes left. So, Bill, I'm going to ask you a question. What can we hope for to see from the Fort Worth Entrepreneur Center in the next coming months and years? What's your vision for the type of programming, content, partnerships that can come out of that?
Yeah, look, I mean, we're learning every day. So we're trying to understand the landscape. There's been an incredibly welcoming sense we've come in, but we're looking for subject matter experts, mentors, and all of that is just necessary for entrepreneurs to be successful. So the idea is we put together all of those things, and really, at the end of the day, what the magic of this is those collisions. So we may put on, and we're going to put on numerous events. In fact, there's likely going to be several events a week within that four walls. And we bring in subject matter experts, but truly, the magic is those collisions. And in the 10 years we've been doing this, the funnest part is hearing those stories about an event that someone attended where they met their future partner, where they met their future capital, where they met their mentor. And so we don't sort of delusions of grandeur here that our curriculum is that amazing, but frequently it's good enough to get everyone in a room. And once you've got people sitting next to each other that are going down the same path at the same time, with the same issues, they're going to bond. They're going to work together. They're going to help each other. So that's the type of environment we want to build in, and we want to welcome everyone in there. So we know there's so much already going on in Fort Worth. Maybe this is just one more gathering spot where we can be intentional about those gatherings and make sure we're moving the ball forward, that we're attracting the type of capital that's going to fuel this growth, and that's just how we're going to start this out. But we're learning every day. We're learning more and more about the community. We invite feedback, and we certainly invite you all to come to the center and give us your ideas on how this should run.
So thank you for that. Sean, as we're closing out, Sean told me that you guys love a scoop. And so so we wanted to use today as the opportunity, the first time that I'm showing this to anybody, but we had a great group of probably 20 Fort Worthians who came together to come up with the name and brand for the new space. And so we are excited to show you the logo for what is going to be called Create Fort Worth. So we invite you to come see it. You're probably going to get an email, but next Friday, the 28th, we're reserving that to show some other pre-opening tours. So if you guys want to come see it, let us know. You'll be able to respond through the email. Thank you guys for being here today, for doing this, and thank you guys for allowing us to come and share with you.
Thank you, gentlemen, so much for being here. How exciting, learning of this entrepreneurial ecosystem right here in our own community. Gentlemen, we look forward to you coming back because we will need updates. We'll definitely want to hear what's going on in the future. And also let us know how our Rotary Club can support you. This is exciting for all of us. Also, in the tradition of the Rotary Club of Fort Worth, we will donate in each of your names to the Rotary International Polio Plus Fund to help further the global eradication of the polio virus. That's a tongue twister there. Thank you. And thank you for taking the time to be here today. We just have a couple of closing announcements. Next week, July 28th, our speaker will be Adriana Cruz with the Texas Economic Development and Tourism Office. She's their executive director. And as a reminder, today we have a finance committee meeting. Everyone loves finance committee meetings, right? It's we in the Imperial Room on the 11th floor. Have a great weekend, everyone. See you soon.